Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Okay, so now we have to find the file, and let's see if I can find it. No, it should be here. Let's see if I go by date. Let's go to this one. Oh dear. It's there. It's, oh, let's do a search. 0 should be 001. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Okay. Yeah, very good. Thank you. Okay. So, we want to take a little journey into Canto 5 of Srimad Bhagavatam. As many of you may know, the Srimad Bhagavatam has 12 cantos, but perhaps we should say something more broadly about the Bhagavatam before jumping into the 5th canto. It is said in the very beginning, in Canto 1, Nigama kalpataror galitam palam shukumukad amrita drava samyatam pibata Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam Muhur Aho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavuka. What does that mean? Nigama Kalpataror. This Bhagavatam is a wish-fulfilling tree, Kalpataru, which is coming from Nigama. Nigama, literally that which grows down, and it refers to the Veda in general. So the Veda are like the roots, and from the roots come a tree, and from the tree come leaves and flowers and fruits. Nigama kalpataror galitam palam, palam means fruit, shuka mukat amrita drava samyutam, and Shukadev Goswami has tasted that fruit. And because he has tasted it, we can understand it is very sweet. Why? Because Shuka is a parrot, and parrots like sweet things, but also because Shuka is a great devotee who is so renounced that he didn't even bother to wear clothes. Amrita Drava Samyutam, and he was able to relish Amrita, this assembly of nectar. And it is recommended pibata. Pibata means drink. We all like to drink sweet things. This is a special kind of drinking. Pibata Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam. Alaya means like a reservoir. The Bhagavatam is a reservoir of rasa, which is Amrita. Pibata Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam. When should we drink it? Muhur, again and again. All the time. One should drink the nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam. Muhur aho rasika. Who should do this drinking? Anyone who has the capacity to relish. In French, they have a word, connoisseur. You know this word, connoisseur? A connoisseur is someone who knows, has refined taste. So the devotees, Krishna devotees, we want to develop refined taste. How do we develop that? By reading, by hearing, by discussing Srimad Bhagavatam. Why? Because it is full of, Srila Prabhupada said, it is the beautiful story of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is what this book is. I've been focusing on Canto 5 for the last few months, especially because I'm encouraging devotees to also read 5th Canto and to not only read, but also to then reflect on their reading, and after reflecting, to write something as an expression of inspiration from just one verse, any verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5. And we have been compiling. We've done this for Cantos 1, 2, 3, and 4 already, and we have published books. And we plan to publish one for Canto 5. And eventually, guess what? Canto 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So we're getting devotees to do something which Most of us are not accustomed to writing more than WhatsApp messages and grocery lists and, I don't know, things like that, practical things. But writing is a very wonderful way. It's a kind of yoga to focus the mind on Krishna and his devotees. Well, some of you might be interested in that, and if you are, you can ask me for more details. But for now, we're going to dip into the Bhagavatam with some images, some paintings, and we'll see how far we get. The fifth canto has altogether 26 chapters, and we may or may not, we'll see how fast we go. We're not in any big hurry, so we'll see. Does this sound like a good thing to do? No? No. Maybe. You don't sound very convinced. Okay. We'll try it. It's an experiment, okay? All right, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, which Srila Prabhupada called the creative impetus. Uttaya, it's called in Sanskrit. And we first hear about a certain King Priyavrata. And I should say, more generally, the Bhagavatam, starting with the fourth canto, is giving, in a sense, a story of, from the fourth through the ninth canto, we can say it's a kind of story of one day in the life of Brahma. And within that one day, there appear 14 what are called manus. These are kind of big-time administrators. And then, for example, Swayambhuva Manu, who is the father of Priyavrata, and also of Uttanapada, who appeared in Canto 4. And what's happening is, very broadly, the Bhagavatam is sort of listing dynasties, generations, giving, in some chapters, quite many names, and we might kind of wonder why all the names. They might not be meaningful to us, but then the Bhagavatam pauses with particular persons and elaborates why this person is important, because they are devotees of the Lord, or because they are avatars of one kind or another of the Lord. And then we hear more about them, their qualities, their activities. And why is that interesting for us? Well, maybe it's interesting because we would like to also be devotees of the Lord. And so we're hearing about the great devotees. But here is a question. We may think, well, these are the great devotees. What do they have to do with me? I'm a very tiny devotee. I am a mini devotee. And these are maxi devotees. But what hearing about them, reading about them does is it stretches our imagination of what is possible. A lot of these devotees are kings. Where are the kings today? Well, we have a king of England, and maybe a king of Denmark, or is it a queen? There are a few kings and queens, but they're usually kind of low-key kings and queens today. Anyway, that's another story, but there's a kind of sense also in the Bhagavatam of a longing for qualified leaders. And leadership is something that happens or can happen on all different levels. Every one of you are leaders. Either you're actively or potentially leaders. But to be good leaders, we all have to be also, or first of all, we have to be good, what? Followers. And so we learn to follow, one way we learn is by following the great devotees described in the Bhagavatam. Okay, there is one king, Maharaja Priyavrata. The image on the right is showing Priyavrata in his rata, Priyavrata in his rata, in which he goes out to help the sun planet. He's a bit dissatisfied. The sun comes up and the sun goes down and then it's dark. What is this? We need more sunlight. What to do? All right, let's go out and produce more light. And therefore, Priyavrata, we understand, is so powerful that he can do this. He becomes like a second sun. We then hear in chapter 2 about a certain Maharaj Agnidra and some romance. The Bhagavatam has all kinds of stories, including romantic stories. Lord Brahma sent this celestial girl named Purvachitti to Agnidra. That story is told in chapter 2. And then we come to the story of Rishabha. Now Rishabha, or Rishabha Deva, is interesting in many respects. Rishabha is very much celebrated, not so much in our traditions, but he is very much celebrated amongst the Jains. Do you know who the Jains are? Do we have Jains in Crawley? Yeah? Do we have any Jains here? Many Jains are named Mr. Jain or Mrs. Jain. So the Jain tradition goes back to very ancient times, and they honor a group of special personages whom they call Tirthankaras. These are regarded as liberated souls who are not quite considered divinity, but are the highest beings in their cosmology, going beyond the cosmology. So Rishabdeva is like number 1 in that list of 24. But in the Bhagavatam, there's no mention of the Jains. It's understood Rishabha is a kind of avatar. A kind of, I believe he's called a Shakti Avesha avatar. He is the son of a certain King Nabi, and that's mentioned in the Jain literature also. So there's some kind of crossover there, which is interesting because in the Bhagavatam, Rishabdeva is, first of all, he's described as a great king who is also a teacher. And he has not 1 or 2 sons or 3 sons, he has 100 sons. And he teaches them. He's a responsible father because he teaches spiritual truths to his sons. Nayam deho deha bhajan nriloke Kashtan kaman arhati vid pujanye. Tapo divyam putraka yena sattvam shudyet yasmat Brahma sokyam hi anantam. He says, this human form of life, what is it for? Is it meant to live like hogs and dogs? No. Tapo divyam, it is meant for austerity, for transcendental austerity. So like that, he teaches these 100 sons, and then he practices what he teaches. The best way to teach is by example. Therefore, we have the term acharya, one who teaches by example. We say in America, maybe you say it here also, he says he walks his talk. Yeah, you say like that also. This probably came over from America, from New York, or the other way around. He renounces his kingdom, he goes to the forest, he lives a very simple, austere life. You've heard the phrase, simple living, high thinking? Mm-hmm. Rishabdev, he's the model for that. And he also endures much abuse. He acts as if he is kind of disconnected from everything in such a way that people, it's described, they take advantage of him and abuse him in so many ways. And he just tolerates because he knows, I'm not this body. What does it matter? So he's understood to be very much advanced, so much so that coming to the end of his life, as he's wandering about, he encounters a forest fire. We hear a lot about forest fires nowadays, unwanted forest fires. This forest fire, whether wanted or not, Rishabdev simply allows to consume him. That's how he ends his life. Again, he's already left his body, so what does it matter? Let the body be burnt. So that's Rishabdeva. Oh, we see him here on the left being abused in various ways, and then the forest fire that he's consumed by. And then we have the story of the senior most of Rishabdev's sons. His name is Bharata. And Bharata, having inherited the kingdom, very responsibly leads the kingdom it's hard to know if we should take it literally. If we take the Sanskrit of this literally, he has led the kingdom for not less than 10 million years. But Sahasra Ayudha can simply mean a very long time, times 1,000. In any case, a long time. And as some of you may know, excuse me, he also, after this time, gives it all up. In fact, it uses the expression, he left it as one leaves stool after passing stool. He just leaves it, no longer interested. And he goes to the forest and he settles himself at the river Gandaki. Gandaki River is in present-day Nepal, where if you go up in the higher portion, you find Shalagram Shilas there in the river. He goes there, he sits on the bank of the river, he begins meditating, he becomes very advanced in his meditation. He's also a devotee, and therefore he performs worship of Lord Vishnu. But then comes trouble. And what is the trouble? The trouble comes when a deer, frightened by a lion, the deer being pregnant, suddenly gives birth, and after giving birth, dies, leaving the deer fawn as an orphan. And Bharata, he has a soft heart, and he sees this helpless little fawn, and he takes the fawn into his shelter, and then he, in course of time, Bharata becomes very much fond of the fawn. So much so that he neglects his meditation, he neglects his worship of Vishnu. He comes to the point where he neglects, practically speaking, everything except the fawn, to the extent that one day he drops, perhaps having fallen off a cliff, and he dies, and in his next life he is born as a deer. He was focusing on a deer, so he becomes a deer. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram. Tam tam evaiti konteya sada tat bhava bhavita. It is sada, it is always the case that whatever we are focused on in this life, at the time of death, eva eti, there we will certainly go. So that happens to Bharata, he becomes a deer. But he becomes a deer who remembers his previous life, and so he lives it out nearby to an ashram. Next life, he's born as a Brahmin, and immediately resolves, in this life, I am not going to waste any more time. I am going to focus on Krishna consciousness. But how am I going to do that with all the family, with so many demands for me? They're going to expect so many things, so many I'll have to get married, I'll have to have a family. It'll be all so distracting. So, what does he do? He feigns being deaf and dumb, as a deaf mute. He acts, we might say, as a person who cannot relate to the world. And so he lives that way in such a way that eventually he is, when he grows up, he becomes very strong. And he's taken by some dacoits. What do the dacoits do? They want to offer him as a human sacrifice to Kali. Why? Because the leader of the dacoits wants to have a son, and he thinks that if I can please Kali by offering a human sacrifice, then she will bless me and I will get a son. So they take Bharata, now he's known as Jada Bharata. Jada means dull. They take him, and Jada Bharata, who is completely non-resistant because, like Rishabha before, he's already beyond life and death. He's an avaduta. So, okay, you want to offer me to Kali? Whatever. Just as they're about to lower the sword on his neck, what happens? Kali, who's in a murti form, jumps out of her murti, or else her murti becomes alive. It's not exactly clear from the Sanskrit. she grabs the sword and she kills all the dacoits. And then Bharata is left free. Okay, I'm still alive. But then he becomes drafted into service of a certain, probably minor king named Rahugana. But now there's another sort of problem. The problem is that Bharata, who is now Jada Bharata, who remembers his previous 2 lives, has become more advanced than ever in his devotion. And one way that his advancement in devotion is indicated is that he is careful not to step on any small, dare I say, creepy crawlies. Can I say that in crawly? Don't mind. He is a palanquin carrier, but he can't keep pace. And the king is not happy about that, so he begins to insult this silent but very strong Jada Bharata. But at this point, Jada Bharata begins to speak. Now he has something to say. And what he has to say is so pure and powerful to this Rahugana that Rahugana is jolted out of his illusion of thinking, I am a king. And he is immediately humbled. He even gets down from his palanquin and throws himself at the feet of Jadabharata. And then Jadabharata elaborates the teachings about the Adhyatma Jnana, the absolute truth of the self, that we are not these bodies. We are spirit, soul. And he elaborates actually, I think it's 4 chapters. He tells on the far right, you see Bharata, he's telling a story, an extended metaphor about a merchant in a forest and how all kinds of unfortunate things happen to him. He's trying, this merchant, to gain wealth. That's what merchants do, but everything goes wrong. And so by that story, he's making the point, this is material life. This is what we are all confronted with. This is what we all suffer in this world. There's more elaboration on this story. Okay, then this is one of these chapters which is full of names. It's kind of family trees. Some people are into family trees. They like to make charts and, you know, this person is from the, descended from this and so on. But it's not my particular hobby, so I won't say much about this, but that's there. As Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, the Bhagavatam is in some respects a summary of all the Vedic literature and the Puranas. And if you have the Srimad Bhagavatam, he says, you don't need anything else. You don't need any of the other Vedic literature. Well, then, starting with chapter 16, now the real trouble starts. Or we could say the real fun starts. In chapters 16 through 26, so 11 chapters, we get a guided tour through the universe, Puranic style. This description, or these descriptions of the universe, have been the source of great discussion and debate over many centuries. How to understand these descriptions in relation to what we see, or what astronomers or what astrologers see, with or without telescopes, but by observation. There seem to be great differences. What I would suggest is we don't worry about that. Rather, we can read these chapters and simply take them in a spirit of wonder, that the reality is we don't know what's out there. We're so small. As we sit here in this room, what do we know what's going on outside the room? Well, we know what's going on next door. The kids are playing. And okay, we know the sun is shining outside. We don't know really that much what's going on. Our senses are extremely limited. Another thing is that we can take these descriptions as a form of meditation. So, for example, this we see on the left is a map of Jambu Dvipa. Dvipa means island, the Jambu island. And the Bhagavatam goes into quite some detail. It gives measurements in terms of yojanas. What is the distance of a yojana? 8 miles. Okay, some people say 8 miles, some say 16, some say 2. In the Sanskrit dictionary, you'll find, I think, all of those possibilities. And another way of understanding yojana is it's a yoking. What is a yoking? A yoking is the distance that an ox can carry a cart in the course of one day. But now you may say, well, some oxen may go further than other oxen. Some may be stronger and some less, and so on. So that doesn't help us very much. Then you realize we are very much brought up in a culture where what we think is precise measurement is very important. We are constantly measuring everything. We have clocks to measure the time, and we have odometers in our cars, speed, whatever, and we have shoe sizes and all kinds of measurement, which we put great value in being precise. It seems that in earlier times, this sort of precision wasn't the point. And still, there are numbers. So we hear that Mount Meru, I forget the numbers now, and it's too small for me to read now, but it's, whatever it is, 10,000 yojanas high, and so on. I think 10,000 yojanas. And you will say, well, okay, great, where is this Mount Meru? Good question. In any case, we do get these elaborate descriptions, and they can be objects of meditation. One can visualize, and I believe this was a major function of such descriptions. Here we have on the left Golden Meru or Sumeru. And then you get descriptions of wonderful things happening. For example, there are these huge trees. There's the jambu tree, which drops jambu fruits. And when those jambu fruits fall down, they mix, they're like mangoes. And the mangoes or jambu fruits are said to be the size of elephants. And you may think that's an exaggeration. But in the, I believe it's the Adi Purana, it says it's a very big elephant. Namely, it's, now what is the term? It's 641 lengths of the distance from the elbow to the tip of the finger. That's the size of the fruit. In any case, when that drops, it mixes with the mud of the river and it turns to gold. And then the devas, they take that gold and they make ornaments with it for themselves. They dress themselves in ornaments. Okay, sounds interesting. Where do we see that? Well, it's not for us to see, it's for the demigods to see. And if you want to see, you can become a demigod. How to become a demigod? There are procedures. But there's some austerity involved. Are you ready for that austerity? Oh, and also, there's this wonderful description. Now there's there's Jambudvip, but there's also Bhumandala. Bhumandala extends out. And what Bhumandala seems to be a description of is the pattern where the planets are circling the sun. But it's described as so many dvipas. What is, there's Plakshadvip, and there's Shalmali Dvipa and Kusha Dvipa and so on. And there is a sea of salt that we're familiar with. There's a sea of sugarcane. Imagine a sea of sugarcane. I wonder what sort of fish swim in a sea of sugarcane. What about a sea of wine? What kind of fish would be swimming in a sea of wine? Intoxicated fish, perhaps. A sea of yogurt? Okay. A sea of milk and a sea of pure water. All of these are referred to in the Bhagavatam, and the commentators, you may say, well, okay, how to understand this? What do the commentaries say, these traditional acharyas? Well, they don't say a whole lot. They say, yes, this is what it describes, and this is, so they're just kind of clarifying the Sanskrit for the most part. Well, it goes on, because this is a description of the universe, and because we understand Bharatavarsha is a very crucial point within Jambudvip. In Bharatavarsha, the major river is what? It's the Ganga. And so the question comes, where is this Ganga coming from? It comes from up somewhere high beyond this, this globe. In present day Himalaya, the Ganga comes out from the ice, from, what do you call it? Has anyone been up there? Gangotri, yeah. Yeah. So now that ice is melting, how long do we have Ganga coming? Hard to say. Anyway, the story we have how Ganga meets Lord Shiva, I like this painting on the left, how Shiva seems to be getting a very major shower, but doesn't seem to be disturbed by it. Because why? Because he's meditating. And we have him also on the right. This is describing on the right Lord Shiva in Ilavrita Varsha, where he's surrounded by 10 billion maidservants. What's the present human population on this planet? They say 8.3 billion, something like that, yeah. So 10 billion maidservants of Goddess Durga, and if any male enters into Ilavrita Varsha, what happens? They get turned into a woman. So they just get added to the 10 billion. Okay. So then we come to the next two chapters, prayers. Now in chapter 18, there are prayers by residents of these different dvipas, these different islands, to the Lord in his various forms. And there's one prayer by Prahlad Maharaj in Harivarsha, which some of us may know. It's a very nice prayer to Lord Nrsingadev. Om Namo Bhagavate Narasimhaya Namaste Tejase Avirabir Bhava Vajanaka Vajadangstra Karma Shayan Randhaya Tamo Grasa Om Svaha Abhayam Atmani Bhuishta Om Kshetra. So like that he prays. And he also prays Swastyastu Vishvasya Kala Prasidatam Dhyayantu Bhutani Shivam Mitodiya Manascha Badram Bhajatadat Hokshaje Aveshatam no matir api ahaituki. He says, let all the envious people in the world give up their envy and become peaceful by worshiping the Lord. Excuse me. Okay, there's more description of the universe. I won't spend time with this. It says in chapter 20, verse 2, Mount Sumeru, excuse me, Mount Sumeru mountain is surrounded by Jambudvip. Jambudvip is also surrounded by an ocean of salt water. The breadth of Jambudvip is 100,000 yojanas, 1 lakh, and the breadth of the saltwater ocean is the same. So this saves us a lot of time. We don't have to go out and measure it ourselves. This painting on the right, I've always appreciated to see Lord Vishnu relaxing. Sometimes we might feel some stress. Do you ever feel some stress in your life? Not in Crawley, we don't feel stress. We're always relaxed, just like Lord Vishnu. Yeah? Lord Vishnu, when he relaxes, what does he do? When we relax, what do? Well, I know what a lot of you do. You take your phone and you start exercising your thumbs. Am I right? come on, the younger ones of you especially. You've got very strong thumbs, I know. Lord Vishnu doesn't do that. What does he do? He just breathes. He breathes in, he breathes out. What does he breathe out? Universes, countless universes. Is that a big effort for him? Is it like blowing up a balloon? You have to. Is that how he does it? No, he doesn't have any effort whatsoever. He's relaxed. He's in yoga nidra. He's practically, you could say, sleeping. Not exactly like we're sleeping. When Vishnu sleeps, he creates. When we sleep, we snore. Yeah. So this is also something to appreciate from the fifth canto, is we contrast ourselves. We are, God is great, we are small. This is a simple but very important lesson. And we, devotees, we celebrate our smallness because we appreciate God's greatness. We don't feel unfortunate because we're small. We feel we are fortunate that we can appreciate that there is someone who is great. Aishvaryasya samagrasya viryasya yashasasriya jnana vairagyayos-chaiva sannam bhaga itingana. The Lord has 6 opulences in unlimited degree. He is the possessor of all wealth, all strength, all beauty, all knowledge, all fame, and all renunciation. He has 5 opulences, all of which he can freely give up. That's God. We, on the other hand, if we get a little something, we become very attached to it, isn't it? We're very fearful to lose that which we gain. Okay, descriptions of the sun, which kind of brings us back to the first chapter in which we hear of Priyavrata, who goes to help out the sun. The sun goes around in a chariot and creates these marks. It says in verse 13, the chariot of the sun god has only one wheel, which is known as Samvatsara. Samvatsara also means 1 year. One side of the axle carrying the wheel rests upon the summit of Mount Meru, and the other rests upon Manasottara mountain. Affixed to the outer end of the axle, the wheel continuously rotates on Manasottara mountain like the wheel of an oil pressing machine. Now, do we believe that? Believe it or not, that's in the Bhagavatam, and that's one way of meditating on the motion of the sun. It's a wonderful way to think of the movement of the sun. Okay, like this, it goes on, chapter 22, elaborating the orbits of the planets, Shishumara, the planetary system, subterranean heavenly planets. So our experience in this world, if you go into some very, very opulent building, you can imagine this is like subterranean heavenly planets. Singapore, has anyone here been in Singapore? Or if you go to Hong Kong, to some of the to some of the super department stores. You know, they're kind of heavenly places. Yeah? So that's like in these places described here. Then we have Lord Ananta. And again, the Bhagavatam is the story, the beautiful story of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is the personality of Godhead who is underneath everything. He is supporting. Srila Prabhupada explains that he is supporting, actually it's in the Bhagavatam, he's supporting all the planets, the universe is on its heads like so many mustard seeds. If you have a mustard seed on your head, would you feel it? Probably not, unless your head is very clean shaved, then you might feel it. But you don't feel it. Similarly, he doesn't feel, but he is supporting. We always say, oh, it is gravity, but what is gravity? What is it? What is it actually? Okay. And finally, we made it to the end. We have chapter 26. And this is where we learn where not to go. This is where we learn what not to do to not end up in such a place. If we go back to the story of Bharata becoming the deer, well, he was fortunate. He became a deer who could remember his previous life as a bhakta, as a king, as a yogi, but others might end up in more miserable conditions. And miserable conditions we see also in our planet, on our Earth planet. And miserable conditions we read about in the news. If you want to hear about miserable conditions on this planet, we have plenty of it. So the Bhagavatam takes us on this tour, and as we were reading this morning in the beginning of Canto 6, and we discussed, it was the very last chapter that became the impetus for Maharaj Pariksha to ask Shukadeva Goswami, how can this be avoided? And it's explained he's asking that. Why? Because he feels great compassion. So the culture of compassion becomes something that's elaborated in the 6th canto as a result of this last portion of the 5th. But if we look at the 5th canto as a whole, it brings us, I would say it challenges us. It gives us a sense of our smallness in comparison to the greatness of the Lord. But it also takes us, it introduces us to devotees who experience great difficulties and who endure those difficulties for the purpose of self-realization, for realizing the Lord. So there we have it. That's Canto. We did a whirlwind tour of Canto 5. And I hope that you have been enlightened in some small way to the point of thinking, yes, one day, if not today, if not tomorrow, next week, I will read Canto 5 of Srimad Bhagavatam. And after I read Canto 5 of Srimad Bhagavatam, I will choose one verse and I will reflect on this verse and I will write something about it. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Krali Yatra ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
So I think